This module will show you how to recode a variable in SPSS. If you collect data in its most basic form, you may then want to condense it for reporting or analysis. For example, if you collect age information as a continuous variable, 18, 19, 20, 21 years, etc., you may then want to create categories such as 18 to 25 years, 26 to 30 years, etc. To do this, we can use the Recode into different variables option. The Recode into different variables dialog box will allow you to reassign the values of existing variables or collapse ranges of existing values into new values for a new categorical variable. With the information we have in front of us, we're going to create a new category based on weight. So this will be a variable based on people who weigh 70 kilos or less and people who will weigh more than 70 kilos. To do this, we need to come up to transform in the top toolbar and come down to recode into different variable. You may notice that above it, there is a recode into same variables option. By clicking the same variables, it will actually replace the variable currently in your data set. This is not recommended as you will not be able to undo this option. Therefore, we come down to recode into different variables. We left click and it pops up a window. On the left-hand side, you'll notice your variables that are in your data set. And you then have a middle window, which is going to tell you what your original variable or your input variable is. And the output variable is the new variable that you are creating. In this example, we will select weight in kilos, so left click, and then click the arrow to bring it across into that middle section. SPSS has automatically identified that weight is a numeric variable, and you'll notice that along the top here, it is now changed to a numeric variable, becoming an output variable. On the right-hand side of your screen, the output variable section has now opened up, and this is where we can name our new variable, which we'll name weight underscore cat for weight category. And then we can expand and give this a better label and press change. When you're creating a new variable, it is important to note that you can't have any spaces, which is why we often use underscore. And while SPSS is not case sensitive, often it's recommended to be consistent throughout your variables. Once we've clicked change, we'll notice that in the middle section, our old variable weight is now going to be created into a new variable called weight underscore category. We now need to assign new values so it knows how to categorize that continuous variable. So we come down to the old and new values section. Left click, and the following submenu now opens. On the left-hand side of this screen, you'll notice it says old value, and this is previously what weight is categorized as. And on the right-hand side of your screen, you will say new values. This is where you will assign the new values for the variable that you are creating. In this instance, we want to split 70 kilos and under as one part of the category and people who weigh over 70 kilos as the other group. So we can come down to either the exact value, perhaps we want it to be a range, or we can come down to range, lowest through to value. This means that it will take all the values up to and including 70. We then come across to new value and we're going to assign this a 1. In other words, everyone who weighs 70 kilos or less in our data set will now be assigned to the weight category 1. And we need to click add. We then want to have everyone who is above 70 kilos to be in group 2. So we click range, value through highest, and we click 70.1. It's important to know how your data is entered into your main data set to be able to know if we need to put this as 70.001, or something else. Either way, the same number cannot be here, as well as what you put for group 1, as SPSS will not be able to differentiate. Once we've written range of value through to highest as 70.1, we come across to the top to our new value, and we enter that as a 2, and click add. So here we have everyone who is 70 kilos and under being assigned to category 1, and everyone who is 70.1 kilos and greater assigned to category 2, and click continue. Once you are happy with that, we now click OK, and an output window will pop up on your screen. The output window is telling you what's been run by SPSS. So we can see that it's recoded weight of lowest through to 70 as a 1 and 70.1 through to highest as a 2, and that's been created into a new variable called weight category. Execute at the end means that this command has been executed and there haven't been any errors. We can now jump back into our main data screen. Making sure that we're on the data view, we can see that this new variable has now been added to the right-hand side of our data. We always do a quick visual check to make sure that we haven't made any errors. So for in this instance, 89 is greater than 70, therefore we'd expect them to be in group 2, which is the case. And if we take person 1010, we can see their weight is 58 kilos, which is less than 70, and therefore we would expect them to be in category 1, which is also correct. When we come across into variable view, we can see it's been added to the end weight cat. It is a weight category, and it's been listed as a nominal variable. If you really want, you could then add in the values so you can remember how you've assigned this variable. We'll now come back into data view. One thing that is quite common when we're working with a data set is you may want to create a new variable which uses information from existing data. Quite commonly, this may be computing age from date of birth or BMI from weight and height. Given we have weight and height both in this data set, we're going to compute BMI today. BMI was previously computed back in module 3, so if you need to go there for a refresher, you can. Otherwise, we'll talk through it here today. BMI is equal to weight divided by height in meters squared. To do this, we come up to transform and compute variable. Our target variable, we enter our new variable name. And for numeric expression, you can either type in your variable name, such as weight, or to ensure you don't make any errors, I prefer to left click on the variable and use the arrow to bring it directly across. When we write these numeric expressions, it is very similar to say how you would create it in Excel, and we've just put it in as if we would write any other equation. So for BMI, it is weight in kilos divided by height in meters squared. Weight, we can see, is already in kilos, so we're just going to start off by putting that one in brackets. We are then going to divide it, and to divide, we put the forward slash. We then need to open up our bracket, and you'll notice that height is in centimetres. So because height is in centimetres, we will need to convert it to metres to ensure we have the correct equation. So we open up the second bracket, move height across, divide it, so forward slash by 100 to convert it from centimetres into metres, and then we close that first bracket. In the equation, height is squared. In SPSS, to square a number, we need to do 2 asterisks and then enter the number 2. So in other words, height is going to be to the power of 2, or squared. And we then close that final bracket. So what we have here is weight in kilos divided by height converted to meters squared. We then, once you're happy with your equation, we then press OK. If there's an error in your equation, this will pop up and you'll need to come back to this screen to revise and work out what you've done incorrect. So press OK. You notice your output screen has now popped up, and down the bottom, the last 2 lines will state what you have done, which is computing the new variable of BMI and the equation that you have used, and that it's been executed. Now click and come back to your main data view screen. And on the right-hand side, you can see that we now have a new variable called BMI, and it's to 2 decimal places. There's a little ruler symbol next to BMI, and this is indicating that it's recognised that it is a scale variable. We come across to variable view, and just under label, we can now label that as BMI. If you wanted to, you could change your decimal places by increasing them or decreasing them. And it has recognised it's a scale variable, otherwise you may need to change the measurement level that it is at. So to practice one more time creating a categorical variable from a continuous variable, we're now going to categorise BMI into 4 different categories. So come back to your data view tab. We're going to take BMI, which is a continuous scale variable, and we're going to categorise it into a BMI category based on underweight, healthy weight, overweight, and obese. To do this, we come up to transform, and we're going to recode into different variables. Left click, and you get your pop-up window. We're going to click reset because we've already created the weight variable and we don't need to do this again. We're now going to bring BMI across into the main center. We can see it's recognised as a numeric variable, and let's create our new variable name. So BMI underscore cat. And under label, let's change this to BMI category. And remember to press change. The question mark that was here is now being converted to BMI underscore cat. So we know that we're going to be creating our variable from BMI into a categorical variable BMI cat. We need to assign some old and new values. So click, and then in this instance, we want to have all values up to 18.49 as our underweight category. So in the range lowest through value, type in 18.49, and we assign that new variable as a 1 and click add. Under range, we now want all the values between 18.50 through to 24.99 to be assigned as a 2 and click add. We also want 25.00 to 29.99 to be assigned as a 3 and click add. And then we want to take all the values from 30 and higher. So we come down to range value through highest, enter 30.00, and that's going to be assigned a new value of 4 and click add. So what we are saying to SPSS here is that all of the lowest values in our data set up to and including 18.49 are going to become a 1. Values of 18.5 through to 24.99 are going to become a 2. Values of 25.00 through to 29.99 are going to be assigned to category 3. And all values of 30.00 through to the highest value in our data set are going to be assigned to a 4. Once you're happy with this and you're ensuring that there's no overlap between the groups, please click continue and then OK. You can see in our output screen that will automatically pop up. It will tell you how you have identified this and how you've assigned it and that it's been executed. In big data sets, we would recommend actually copying this syntax output, and that way you'll have a record of how you labeled things and grouped them for future reference. Left click and come back to your main data view screen. You can now see your BMI category has been created on the right-hand side. We do a quick double check. So say for instance, in this case, 23.41, that should be in category 2, and it is. So we know that this is correct. It's always important to do a quick cross check as mistakes can happen during that data entry phase. Another important thing to note is once these categories have been created, if you add new data into this data set or change any of these values, unlike something such as Excel, it will not automatically update these categories. So you will need to rerun it if you change any of these data points or if you add any new cases to your spreadsheet. We'll then come across to your variable view and we'll need to assign some new values. So under BMI category and values, we left click and then click on the 3 dots. Under value, this is what number you have assigned it. So say for group 1, we put 1 and the label here will be underweight and click add. We then for group 2, the label here is healthy weight and add. For group 3, this was overweight, click add. And 4, this was the obese category and click add. So we should now have all the labels assigned to the numbers so that you'll be reminded, and also in your output, you'll be able to see which group was which. Also, if you are using values to assign, it can be handy to sometimes add this extra information into label or to make sure that you do note it down somewhere so that you can remember in the future how you assigned those BMI categories. Once those are written in, please press OK and then come back to your data view. A handy way to quickly pull some descriptive information about your variables is actually to right click on the variable name. And this will show you just how the BMI and the BMI category have actually worked out. So if you right click and come down to descriptive statistics, because BMI is a continuous variable, we'll be able to get information such as median and mean. So let's left click, and in your output, you'll see that there was 10 people with a mean of 27.6 and a standard deviation of 5.9. If we come back to our main data set, you'll now be able to see how this will look different for your BMI category by right-clicking at the top, click Descriptive Statistics. We can see that there is 10 people. Mode is 3, so that's the most common category. I wouldn't really worry about the bottom 3, but interestingly, you'll see this new box of BMI category down the bottom, and it's showing you had 4 healthy weight, 5 overweight, and 1 obese. So if you didn't go in and put value labels, this would be coming up as a 2, 3, and 4, and you would have to try and remember how you assigned it. So this way it shows you nice and easily, and you can see how the information is presented differently for this new categorical variable that we created in comparison to our continuous variable.